Okay, so we're doing a live presentation. Some folks are watching online from all over the world, and then, of course, our group of folks here. And tonight's a free intro to basically our year-long course. I call it a Course in Spiritual Awakening. We don't want to call it just a Course in Miracles because, well, for a couple of reasons, but because it's really about spiritual awakening, which, of course, heavily facilitated by A Course in Miracles. So Course in Miracles students would love this course that we're going to be doing. I don't know that it's been done as a one-year online course. I know that people have done it. One friend I know is doing it kind of as an ongoing. They just, have an ongoing kind of thing. It's not structured to be 1 year. And I know people have done bits, or sometimes where you can watch audios on a regular basis. You can listen to audios on a regular basis. But a 1 year course as it was designed to be, I don't think that's been done. So this is maybe a first at that. And there'll be a few other firsts going on here. And this is going to be just amazing because this is a Course in Miracles. So we know that it's a Course in Spiritual Awakening, but clearly most of it's going to be on A Course in Miracles. So course students, beginners are going to dig it because it's working A Course in Miracles, but in a way that the facilitator, in this case myself, really knows the course well enough to help a person navigate if they're a beginner in A Course in Miracles. But advanced students as well. What I wouldn't recommend is if you're one of those course students that has much more of an intellectual dry approach. That you probably wouldn't like this, so so we're too fun, so that might not resonate. So if you're really coming with your head, into this and saying, well, there's this potential Course in Miracles, event, and you go and you watch today or you watch the weekly courses, but doing so from the way some people study the course, from your head, it's probably not going to be right for you. Let's get that out of the way. I wrote a book called The Heart of A Course in Miracles for good reason, because it is the heart. It's kind of funny because Alan Cohen, who I respect a lot, Alan, it's so easy. Some people are you can just tell their authenticity. And when it comes to spiritual teachers, he's just one of the few out of all that I've ever met that's really quite authentic, And Alan, we've done online things together. We've done conferences in person together. We go back to like maybe the mid-90s, later 90s, maybe the first time we did a conference together. And I remember, I did my talk and, people are, coming up and you sign autographs and these kinds of things and people, pictures, or whatever they're doing. But you finish when you're done doing your talk as a speaker. And all that hustle and bustle, and then you kind of eventually you exit the conference room, and I down the hall and into the elevator, and there's sort of a moment of like you get in the elevator and it's like, like one of those, right? And then in comes Alan, and he gets in and, hi Alan, hi Michael, good to see you. Yeah, good to see you. And there's this quiet for a moment because he's sort of a pensive type, and so he really paces his words. So it's like, I really liked your talk. That was the best talk I've ever heard on this topic. And but he gathers his thoughts. And so we go back to this point, and ever since then, I just thought, this guy is just so cool, Before it was like speaker, but he bridged there, it was really nice. But he'll be actually a guest. We'll have a few guest Course in Miracles people, Carol Howe, Alan Cohen, Gary Renard, in our program, so that you folks can ask them questions. You can interact, pal around, or whatever. But to be able to interact with folks that are obviously great authorities on A Course in Miracles as well as other studies. So it's really deep material, A Course in Miracles. And yet it's like if you've ever studied the Tao Te Ching or Lao Tzu, really one of the wisest things you can find in the Far East, and yet Lao Tzu says something just like Jesus says in A Course in Miracles. This material is actually quite easy. You just have a problem, You're coming at it from your head, and therefore it's not going to make sense to you. And Jesus kind of says the same thing. You know, this is very easy, actually, because people are like, oh, of course, it's so difficult. I just would use the word, it seems difficult. Why does it seem difficult? Well, it uses this, and it's in Shakespearean pentameter, you know, this bippity-boppity-boop kind of rhythm to it. You sometimes won't notice. Other times you might notice. There's times it's written in almost composition, musical composition. I mean, that's how intelligent the material is. It's coming from a mind that can do musical competition, and in that sometimes Shakespearean pentameter, rhythm of writing, other times Far Eastern beauty and poetic kind of a vibe to it, other times butt-kicking, you know, get to the point, rational thinking. It can shift like that. From the softest to the firmest. Definitely it's not all just sing-songy and right brain. There's a lot in A Course in Miracles that is what's called logical progression. So instead of just saying, look, you're in A and here's Z, he'll instead do that deduction. Well, let's see. Using math numbers, let's say. If 1 plus 1 is 2, and he takes you that way. Because if he just says, guess what, 10, people are like, oh, it's too much. So he'll say, okay, wait, let's calm it down. If 1 plus 1 is 2, and you add 1 more, wouldn't that be 3? Well, yes. And then if you added 1 more, what would that be? That would be 4. And he takes you through this to where you're answering your own question. You're resolving the problem. But he purposefully takes you a step at a time. I think it's kind of funny because you can either not notice that, or you can notice it and get reactive, like afraid, because it can happen. Because once you realize you're getting me to a place that I'm afraid to be, which is why you didn't get it in the first place. So you can get reactive and defensive about that, or you can, I kind of just laugh. I just go, dude, you got me. Like, this is great. You know, you can kind of look at it like a friend who is being gentle and saying, look, you know, if this is true, wouldn't this also be true? It's just beautiful when he's doing that. We can say it's channeled from Jesus, which it is. But more importantly, it's the consciousness of Christ. Not just Christ Jesus. Christ in all of us. So technically, it isn't Jesus telling you what's what in the book. It's technically, you could say, our own Christ speaking to us ourselves. So that's very empowering. The Christ in us all is speaking. So beautiful, so deep. And there are some questions some of you have sent in recently, kind of asking questions about what we're going to be covering. But I'll cover, you know, I'll do a few of these if I can. But it's important to understand, of course, this isn't like first of all, tonight is not a sales pitch for our Wednesday night courses in 2020. I'm going to try to make this somewhat complete in itself. But it also does tell you about the course. But it's also important to understand this isn't like just a course, a thing. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. There's this new book. We're going to do a book study or a study group like on a book. Or, hey, there's this new thing, you know, like it's Amway, you know. Hey, you really ought to get in on this one, you know. This you can think of it that way because you hear people talking about A Course in Miracles. You might actually get excited about A Course in Miracles. But it isn't just another book. It really isn't. All since the beginning of time, God has had what's sometimes called God's plan for salvation. In A Course in Miracles, that's what it's called. Or God's plan for our awakening. God knows that its children sleep, hence the word illusion and dream world in A Course or in Far Eastern philosophies. It's just a dream. It's all life is a dream within a dream. And Edgar Allan Poe put it. And it is. Life is but a dream within a dream. We imagined what life would be like if we could be separate from God. Which incidentally, isn't very good. Sure. What would life be like without love, is what you're saying. And everything we experience is what life, hypothetically, what life would be like if, is the operative word, if we could be separate. The good news is, back to the if, it can't be done. Oh, thank God. Now what you've had is a bad dream. I dreamt that I lived and then I died. And no matter how much glamour you can put on the world, rainbows and bunny rabbits, the bunny rabbits still have things chasing them and killing them. Rainbows still come to an end. And we put just enough color and pizzazz in this world to actually make ourselves not want to own that it's a terrible place. That's the Course's perspective, which sounds negative. But it's actually positive because he's saying, no matter how much glitz you can put on earth, on the planet, on life, but babies and nice things, and they die. Don't settle. Don't settle for a world, no matter how good it looks, that it dies. But death is here we go, poetic. Death is just a beautiful part of life, and you come and you go and you cycle around. No, you don't try to make good, positive, this cycling around and around and around and around, never getting it. Perpetually, lifetime after lifetime. Even if you can say, well, my life's been nice, but there's people who his life hasn't been nice. So do you want to throw them to the wolves just because you had a decent life and you say, no, I really actually would push the button to continue the dream because I've done okay. That's selfish. Understand, if even one person suffers, there's no excuse. Don't justify this place of limitation. We don't have to put all kinds of dark words to it. Just even calling it a limited, and it is, world. And some people say, the world's unlimited. You can earn as much as you want. And they use positive thinking to get stuff. Well, in heaven, you would already have that. So there would be no effort in having to get it. You would not be without it in the first place. But that's part of the beauty of you learning to get your mind to get those things. Thank you. And you're a positive thinker. Yes, I am. How much have you positively created for yourself? I have $20 billion. Good. Do you know you're still going to die? That's not good news. But it's okay. Don't try to justify it. The fact that any child has to be hurt, the fact that any animal, dead, killed, we learn that eventually the lamb will lie down with the lion in peace. There won't be a perpetrator anymore. Why would you want to perpetuate a false world and say, no, this is really great? As long as you're not the one preyed upon. Understand that even if you're not in pain, don't justify this world as being great. Instead, take into account there are people who aren't doing so well. And take them into account and say, you know what? On their behalf, this is not, as Yogananda puts it, my home. It gets better. Not just, I'm not in pain. It gets better. You might think this is okay, this world, because you might be doing all right. If you've listened to some of the suffering that people have gone through, it'll really help convince you this is not enough. God or bust. Heaven or bust. No settling. That's kind of, putting it firmly, I guess you could say. And A Course in Miracles has all kinds of layers and depths and dimensions to it. Really, really amazing material, obviously. But it is part of a divine plan. It's not just kind of a nice book. I mean, you can read decent articles in Reader's Digest. That doesn't mean it's necessarily one of the primary texts of God's plan for salvation. There's books that are so-so. They're just things. Life magazine. Whatever, this stuff that people read. It's not necessarily a direct, primary part of that plan that I'm talking about. I'm not making it bad. I'm just saying, we say to ourselves, at some point, I want the fast track. I'm really kind of ready. I feel like I'm ready for that sort of thing. And so A Course in Miracles, just putting it another way, starting in our generation, sometime in the 50s, and it doesn't mean, if you were born in the 20s, you're not part of this. It's not the point, because some people came in a little earlier, some later. But in our lifetime, something happened which Jesus calls the great cosmic speed up, which means an infusion was done where the heavens itself said it's time to do like an infusion of light into the earth plane. The folks are getting ready and time is running out. So we need to do like quantum shifts for people. What are we going to do? We're going to get the right people to write the right books. And this is really cool stuff because what I'm telling you is absolutely true. And it helps clarify that this isn't just another book or just another piece of material out there. There's an infusion that came in. Some of it's, secondary in terms of how much light it has. Primary, Course in Miracles. Primary, and there's a few other things out there. Some of them aren't the things you might think they are. Some of them are teachers, not books or study material or whatever. Some of them are teachers. Yogananda was one of those teachers. He was like plugged in. He wasn't just another anything. He wasn't just another guru or teacher of the East or whatever else you want to call him. He was plugged into a unique level. He really was. And him being just one example of teachers. And that doesn't mean that it's only teachers. You could be watching this program and be part of this plan. Why? Because you're genetically blah, 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 and beings from Arcturus came and assigned it to you. No, it's just called a choice. He calls it teachers of God in A Course in Miracles, which is also synonymous with miracle workers, which you could also call light workers. You know what? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and accept my role in God's plan. I think I'm feeling it. I'm ready to just say, I'm committed to light work, to being a light worker. If that feels too strange, you don't know what that means or something, it means someone who's wanting to anchor more light on the planet. You could be a light worker via healing techniques, through teaching, even parenting, or just being a good person. It's not any particular assignment in form, it's more of a content. So this great cosmic speed up, it's fantastic if you think about it. Jesus himself telling Helen, who was the scribe of A Course in Miracles, the world is worsening at an alarming rate and we need to do something. And this is so cool and so true and so specific that he even tells her, when she asks him once, this is an aside later on, why am I struggling with this course, writing it down? Why am I fighting it so much? She knew it was true. She could feel it. But then she also saw she's fighting it. And she says, why am I fighting it? He essentially tells her, well, Helen, this is kind of tricky. I'm paraphrasing, but he says, it's kind of tricky, but here's what happened. A long time ago, which is when he was Jesus and she was an Essene, one of the mystics of the time, one of the mystic groups or Gnostic groups of Jesus' time. Once upon a time when I was Jesus and you were an Essene, we knew each other. And you felt very dedicated, committed to the work I was doing as Jesus. And you and I made an agreement, a pact, that one day I would come and work with you and help you do something more significant for humanity. That's A Course in Miracles. Wow, that's pretty cool, right? Yeah. Then she's like, but then why am I resisting it? Oh, that. Well, now that you ask, this is what he says to her. Now that you ask, you see, technically, we weren't supposed to do this agreement, this project, until your next lifetime. But I can't wait. Things are happening on the planet. We need to make a major shift. So I need you to do it now. But I won't insist. He says to her, I'm asking you. And he says, and if you say no, I will honor that. Then he throws in, but I know you'll make the right decision. And that's right. That's what happened. So, that's kind of a cool aside, cool story. But wait, how does that apply to you or me or any of us? It tells me that sometimes our struggle with committing to the path or living the Christ life and whatever else you want to call it, that sometimes those resistances that we feel, those are like Helen. There's parts of me that are not feeling ready yet. So what was he telling her to do? Be patient. Ask yourself. You don't have to get on the path. You don't have to go for sobriety or do anything else that's healthy if you're really that scared. But he's kind of hinting to her, but I'm asking you to ask really deep inside, because I know you'll make the right decision. It's a beautiful, gentle way for a master to talk to its children, so to speak. Okay? That said, that's part of why I brought up Alan Cohen earlier, because I've heard him say at least a few times in programs where he was talking and so forth, the conferences he was speaking in, he brought up something I wrote in my Heart of A Course in Miracles book. He references that to his audience and says, Michael, there's a line in Michael's Heart of A Course in Miracles book that I never forgot, and I use it all the time. He said, Michael said that every time people try to study things like A Course in Miracles with their head instead of their heart, they're crucifying the Christ again. Yeah. And he just really rocked him. And, I was like, oh yeah, I wrote it, but, I'm just so honored that it meant so much to him because it's meaningful. Every time we're approaching life, love, healing, teaching, etc., from our head, we're crucifying the Christ again, because you're ixnaying the heart, the soul, the potential Christ birthing of the Christ. And instead of birthing the Christ, you start thinking, overthinking, doubting, fearing, because the reason you start overthinking is because you're triggered or afraid in some way. Oh, I'm not in control. Somebody sits, they do a meditation, they go, whoa, wow, a vision of an old hurt that they need to heal, that they don't want to look at, or a feeling of awe and beauty, and then go, wait, and I've seen people do this, where they, wow, there's no way, this can't be true, this can't be real. What they're doing right then is killing their soul, extinguishing its light, its fire to a degree. So, A Course in Miracles is not just another book, and we will not be approaching just another course out there in the world, those courses. A Course in Miracles is actually similar to a Christian reaching the book of Revelation, except differently than a Christian would read it. When you approach the book of Revelation, Genesis tells you about how you came from heaven into earth. Revelation tells you how you go from earth to heaven. It's a good book. It sounds horrifying because that's how scared we are about going back home. Believe it or not, there's layers and layers of that we can't get into right now, but we will approach that. But A Course in Miracles is so similar to the book of Revelation, so similar that the text ends with chapters on the same topic. Having new vision and the awakening and key words like this, it's all revelation again. Telling you, you're going through the text, reading all this material, and then it's telling you about awakening, revelations you're going to have. Revelation meaning it doesn't have to be dramatic, like in the book of Revelation, but it ultimately means when God is once again revealed to us. So it's a beautiful thing. The Course is actually, its goal is getting us home. And it has workbook lessons. And the workbook lessons are not, you've probably heard me say this before, but they're not like positive affirmations. I am eternally youthful and pretty. That's not A Course in Miracles. A Course in Miracles is, I'm clueless. Like completely the opposite of positive affirmations. I'm clueless. I don't know what anything's for. I don't understand anything. Now, of course, the head's going to go, now wait a minute. And it'll even be so primal about it. I don't know what that chair is for. It'll make you say those words towards things you think, but of course I do. Of course I know what a chair is for. It's for sitting in. That would, believe it or not, be your head talking. Oh, so it's a trick question. The chair is possibly a bed. And you're going to try to mess with words to make yourself right. It's not about saying that it isn't for sitting. It's about, believe it or not, there's a synapse in your brain one synapse that's wired that says, I'm the chair synapse. Here's what a chair is for. And you open that synapse. Chairs are for sitting. If I have brain injury, I relearn and rewire a new synapse. Chairs are for sitting, right? You go through these motions. It, in A Course in Miracles, is about unplugging that synapse. Why would I want to do that? Now I don't know what anything's for. Nice job. No, that's not good news. It is. Because what you're really unplugging is your investment, your beliefs, your fears, your programs about anything, so that another one would replace it. It's not to leave you unplugged. It's so that unplug my past and plugging in a now. What is that chair for now? I don't know. But I'm willing to learn. Becoming a good pupil to the divine. I have no idea. It's being so unattached. I don't know. I'm not trying to plead complete like stupidity, like I refuse to sit in a chair. It's more about the investment in our soul about such things. And you'll know you have investments because if your children were jumping up and down on it, you'd go, that's not what chairs are for. You just betrayed the fact that you do have investments because what makes you think you're right? Because I know. How do you know? Because everybody knows how do they know? Because we were told, right? By who? Anybody but God, it's wrong. Well, no, they're not wrong. It's for sitting and they're correct about sitting. No, not as much as you think they are. Because if somebody else, there's a few chairs right here, if somebody else came in this room, fainted, maybe we're lying them on those things. Maybe now it's not a chair, it's a bed, right? Maybe it's going to keep a door shut when a storm comes and blows doors open. In other words, it's not just about changing its function. That's just one example. It's about changing the investment. Learning to be in the world but not of the world. And this little thing called A Course in Miracles, paper and text on it, is actually designed to take us there. The book is still just a book, but it is absolutely channeled teachings. It still came through a filter. The woman, Helen, who scribed the Course, God, what beauty, what dedication. I just think that's all fantastic. Her connection to Jesus and all that most people don't know about. Even the teachers of the Course don't seem to know much about that. But it's true, it's fantastic stuff. But as all that, given all that, there are so many layers that the more I just open my mind to the layers of what the Course is all about, the more awe there is. Yeah, it's a book, it's text and so on, but it's actually designed to change consciousness. Not a little. It's not to sell copies. There's never been an ad for A Course in Miracles that was ever approved by its foundation. It's never been advertised, but it's a million seller. It's in more continents than almost any book in print, especially modern books that ever came out. Somehow it made it out there. They've had study groups in the Pentagon, if you can believe that. That's true. That goes all the way back to the 80s, I remember that. Study groups in the most bizarre places. Now, some people say, well, yeah, I'm not really into the Course. You may not realize it, but your teacher probably was. If you're a student of spirituality, you probably have been affected by A Course in Miracles. If not directly, then indirectly. That's how much it's out there. I know people that absolutely, of course, bought the book and stuck it on their shelf and never opened it. There's a lot of those copies out there. And that's really a shame, but it's understandable. Because, they saw somebody on Oprah talking about A Course in Miracles. Oh, that just sounds wonderful. And, because so-and-so said, then they go and buy it. They get it, they open it when they get it home. No pictures. Just words and words and, oh my God. Workbook. Book. It just kills them, man. They start having an aneurysm over it. You know what? Boom, back on the shelf. And, and you'll have people that you'll meet. Oh, yeah, I've been in A Course in Miracles for 20 years now. How many times have you read it through? Well, I opened it, I read it, but it just wasn't for me. Or A Course in Miracles, you never really get over it. You're never like beyond it, like some people will say. Oh, I'm past A Course in Miracles now. I'm into somebody who channels, Pluto, or whatever, some planet or some being or whatever. And that's fine, because that's where they're at. But when you turn away from something that has that much light, you might want to think about it. Not to not turn away from it, but turn away from it, but at least own that it's possible there was something there that was too much for you. Go to something else, that's fine, but never forget the gist of what was in the book, which is love and forgiveness. The Course will tell you this is not a book that actually can teach love, because love is what you are. It's not going to teach you love. It's going to teach you how to remove the obstacles. That's why it's called A Course in Miracles, because miracles are only really necessary for people that have fallen and forgotten who they are. So miracles, in a way, the word could be synonymous with restoration, the means of restoration. So it's a course because it is. It's designed like a course. Text like theory in college, workbook like lab in college, and then even a teacher's manual that's a bit like extended studies, graduate studies or whatever. I wish that would have been explained a little more clearly when it first came out. Because, you read it and you go, oh. And I remember even in the 80s, because I kind of got into the Course when it first came out, but even in the 80s, I remember teachers of A Course in Miracles, like people that would conduct ongoing study groups, book studies, and that sort of thing. They all thought the teacher's manual was for the teachers that conduct the study groups. Because it sounds like it. It's called a manual for teachers. Oh, well, that wouldn't be me because I'm just a student in the Course. And the teachers would study, oh, this is only for us teachers. And they would read it, No. The third book, Manual for Teachers, is really, and could have been called something different, like Manual for those who are ready to commit to calling themselves miracle workers, because it means the same thing. But it's what it is. You're committing to another level. It calls it teachers because in the book he's referring to them as teachers of God rather than miracle workers, but they're synonymous. Why the word teachers? Because it's not instructional teachers, verbally instructing. Teachers of God means, Jesus is teaching in the Course, that every time you open your mouth or even the actions you bring forth to the world is teaching people something. Not education, it's teaching them what? What you believe about yourself. When I act confidently, I'm actually, instead of the word teaching, let's switch for a moment to demonstrating, because they're the same in the Course. Every time I open my mouth, I'm demonstrating what I believe about myself and what I believe about you. So if I think that you're being rude and I react to it, what I'm demonstrating is that your behavior is beyond my ability to be patient. Problem with that is I just demonstrated that I'm impatient and that you're not worthy of patience. So we're both up creek. A teacher of God would be demonstrating something different. Now, mind you, it doesn't mean behave perfectly. Because as much as A Course in Miracles looks like it's telling you how to be and behave, which it is, it's also telling you almost like, hey, like the 10 Commandments. Here's some 10 Commandments of which none of you are going to live up to. What's the point of that? Well, it wasn't explained in the 10 Commandments. What's the point of giving us commandments none of us are going to keep? Just so we could guilt ourselves a bit more? Know exactly how bad we are? And use 10 so that we're scaling it on a 0 to 10. I'm a 5, man. What are you? I'm a 3. I'm a 3, and I don't mean gauging your lifestyle, which I talk about, the value of that. I'm talking about how many sins have you committed today? I've committed 7. Oh my God. It's not like you're supposed to use it as a checklist of your naughtiness, The Course and the Commandments too, but the Course is telling you about the perfect consciousness, living, waking up from the dream, living a different way, thinking a different way, perceiving life a different way. Why? So that you'll live up to it. Actually, it's telling you in a perfect scenario, here's how you would be. But its point of telling you that which you will not be able to live up to is so that you will forgive yourself for not doing it. That's the irony. Here's what it would look like. But that wouldn't be you. So, how about we suggest you forgive yourself? Now here's the cool part, because forgiving yourself is actually how you'll get to the point of living that way that you could never live. You understand the trick with that? Here's the way a true child of God would live, even on earth. Oh, I can't do that. Wow. That's why some people close the book. Because they consciously or subconsciously know, man, forget it. I failed this course. They shut the book. I failed this course. But what they didn't realize, you got an F, but it's called forgiveness. That's what you need to do. Go ahead and sit back and go, dang, I'm looking at this course. Okay, let's see. Nope, can't do that. Nope, can't do that either. Nope, that ain't going to happen. For what purpose? To go, oh wait, what's this stuff about forgiveness here? And you eventually will catch on. So it's actually about my forgiving myself for not being able to do this. And then in my forgiving myself for not being able to do it, I started becoming it. It's the coolest thing. I don't know if I've ever even heard a teacher say that. A teacher of the Course explain that. Even the name A Course in Miracles has, layers and layers of meaning to it. But ACIM, A Course in Miracles. But if you just word that out a little more, ACIM, A Christ I am. The Course is a course in Christ consciousness. That's why it's about revelation. That's why it's about us attaining a new vision. Because the Course is also a course about seeing. Lots and lots of lessons and words and text are about seeing. I don't understand anything I see. Such and such, is related to the effects of my seeing. My perceptions are perceptions and seeing and on and on and on. It's all mixed throughout the Course. Why seeing? He even talks about the anatomy, physiology, and biology of seeing. Briefly in there, a couple different places. About how the brain is flip-flop, how the eyes are backwards, how perception is upside down. Your brain has to develop things to flip it all so that you think you're seeing correctly. There's a lot of irony even to the anatomy of vision. But that's a good joke. Because he's saying the bodies you created are twisted versions of yourself. Your bodies get sick. You can't get sick. Your bodies die. You can't die. So why would you be so interested in your body? Well, I'm not. I fast every weekend and I eat only organic. What is it you're feeding organic foods? Your body. Everything is focused on your body. Whether you damage your body, whether you try to worship your body. Why are you thinking at all about your body? I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it teaches, demonstrates who you think you are. Your body. Do I look good in this? It's not bad, but what are you saying? I want to look good for people. Why? Because you're a body. Besides, I want to look good. What is it you want to look good? Your body. We think we're bodies. And we think we see other bodies. The ego has basically hijacked our soul and then started manufacturing bodies for us to live in. But what it's doing is putting bodies like little houses on the Monopoly board, and we're living in those things only to then eventually die and then get another one. And then as long as that spins like the hamster wheel forever, the ego has no risk. It had no risk of being caught or seen or retired. Because everybody just runs on the hamster wheel. As soon as you get here, swat on the butt and off we go. And we're buying into being something that we're actually not. There's not much in this world that becomes a doorway home. Because the world tries to perpetuate that you are home, therefore you'll never be too uncomfortable about being here. You know what you need is, you just need one more loan. You need one more raise at work. You just need one more pound lost. Whatever it is, one more child, one more graduation, one more scholarship, one more, whatever they are in this world, one more attainment. And we live for that because, after all, we are just bodies, meaning this thing. And it isn't, when we say body, and A Course in Miracles talks to you about, you think you're a body, it doesn't just mean the dense shell. It means you think you're a human being. The body is just one more manifestation or crystallization. You think you are a limited human being. And don't say unlimited human being, because there's no such thing. Okay? There's no such thing. As soon as you're an unlimited human being, you're no longer a human being. You're back to being like Christ did. And if you were totally Christed, it would be almost impossible to sustain life in a body because the body can't hold it. As soon as Jesus said now, meaning completely owning his Christness, the body exploded and left an imprint on a garment. He had to work to keep his consciousness slightly scaled down, wanting to burst at every moment to be able to sit in a body. I mean, it's kind of funny if you think about that. Walking around going, oh, but it's so exciting. I'm the Christ. No, calm down. No, but, and he must have been experiencing that regularly. I want to burst in light, but no, I'm here. Oh, what? What was the problem again? Oh, somebody needs healed, but they don't have a body. Shh, Jesus, mellow out. Let's go along with it. Oh, what are we doing? Eating. Okay. He has to play along knowing the truth, but respecting the illusion. So he even says in the Course, you could not sustain a body for long if you have total awareness. And he says, few, but some on earth come in knowing the truth, but purposefully setting aside some of that so they can sustain a body. Do you get what I'm saying there? Like having an awareness of a 10 out of 10, but scaling it to a 9 so you can even breathe in a body and function. Why would you want to do that? He's saying so that you can be in a form that other people can hear. Because if you were just on the other side like a master trying to whisper in ears, only certain sensitives would be able to hear you. So he's essentially saying, listen, you're pretty good, man. You're like, you're pretty evolved. You can sit on the other side and whisper to people, and they'll channel you. That's what some channeling is about. Not all, but some. They're going to channel you, some evolved being, in some circle and impress people with cool stuff. It's great. But he's saying, God's saying, Jesus is saying, Christ is saying, whatever. There's a problem. We have to try to get this message across to your family. Like not just to sensitives in a channeling session. We have to try to get this to your family. So we need you to kind of zip up a body, go into that family, hold some light. They're not going to like you. They're probably not even going to hear much of what you're saying. But there's going to be a little synapse called their inner Michael, their inner Rachel, their inner Joe and Sally. And, and that synapse is going to start getting bellowed, and glow a little bit. It'll be activated. Their inner Jesus is too much for them. But now what about you being a little bit of a light in that family or that genetic line or whatever it is, or at school or wherever you are doing the work? So you're holding this light for people relevant to you and to your vibration. So we're doing this great work. Not everybody's going to respect it. Not everybody's going to dig it. But we're activating little light in them too. Your presence in them, so to speak. The synapse that is you becomes illuminated. And then there are going to be moments, it might not be till they get to the other side, where suddenly death, they go through their dense self is still there fighting. And then boom, to the other side, and they're going to meet their little inner light. This time it's more than one, it's two or three, and it's going to mean something even more. And they're going to go, oh, I should have got that. That's amazing. That's so beautiful. Now, they still can come back dense as hell and not want to get any of this, but every time someone does light work and represents light to each other, to others, it's going to be more light until it can't be denied. The same thing may have happened to you and me in our evolution. Resist, resist, resist. Whoa, what's that? Just enough light turning on. So, let's see, I'm going to check into one of your questions here now. Yes, the answer is yes, I already covered this. We are going to go over all the books, the text, the manual for teachers, and the workbook, of course. But we're also going to dabble through. See, when A Course in Miracles is put together, if it were me, if I were publishing the course myself, the way it should be done and sort of has and hasn't been done, it's off and on here. There's other booklets that Helen received from Jesus. One is on prayer and one is on how to be a healer or psychotherapist, but it means a healer, a counselor. Those should have been just added as chapters in the back of the course because they're part of the course. But some people, I've even seen somebody re-release the course in yet another form and they didn't put those in there. So, is it a complete course if you don't have the complete materials? Not to me. So there are some bits like that, but we're going to try to bring in all of this. And we're going to talk about the importance of psychology, not in a dry form, but Jesus is talking to Helen, and you and I have A Course in Miracles, but the editors, including Helen, and it was overseen by Jesus for the most part, the editing, not word for word, but when asked. And psychology was a big part. She was talking to Jesus about Freud and Jung. So we're going to, incorporate little extra pieces. I've been teaching about all this extra stuff that is now coming out onto the market about extra diary notes of Helen's. But I've been teaching that for almost 40 years. Helen and her diary notes are profound. Some of the stories of her experiencing miracles are worth listening to. But also her dialogues about Edgar Cayce with Jesus, about Edgar Cayce, are really beautiful. Sometimes funny and, whatever. But she talks about psychology and he talks to her about music and he plays with her a little bit, So there's a bit of that. So we want to really approach this course in its entirety as much as possible. That's kind of what I'm going to be doing. I want us to really get its full breadth as much as possible. The original release of A Course in Miracles that's been around for 40 years, the dark blue cover and the gold, stamped lettering on the outside. They had that in 3 volumes originally. Then they broke it off into they joined it in one soft cover where all of those books were in one, making it a little easier to haul around, but it's been around in that form, dark blue, gold lettering, and it's gone through some challenges with who has the rights to print the course, talk about the course. Am I allowed to do a commentary on A Course in Miracles? Use the name Course in Miracles in my books? There was a period where it got really heavy back in the later 90s, mid-90s, where it got kind of heavy-handed with some people. No, we're the only ones who can use the term. No, we're the only ones that have the rights. And so for a while, teachers got scared. Can't do Course in Miracles study groups, can't write books on A Course in Miracles. They got scared. And I just, I was asked about it. What are you going to do? Some of the authors out there, what are you going to do? Because you have classes, you go on tour, and you're advertising Course in Miracles. You're going to do a lecture on a course. I said, I'm going to still do it. I wasn't going to let that get in the way. So after several years, I think some folks got courageous again, and it started kind of coming out. So we can freely use the phrase now. It's free domain, you could say. And it's kind of a funny thing. This is just an aside. That A Course in Miracles ended up in the federal courts about who can use the name, who owns the name. So this is kind of bizarre, but just an aside. But funny and really kind of important. The course went into federal courts about who can use the term, the name. And there are people that are saying, we're the publisher, so we don't want anybody. What happened is the course got bought by a major publishing firm, that you would all know the name of, like your Time Life, Penguin, or whatever. Somebody bought it, and they said, now that we own it, nobody's allowed to use the name anymore except us. So when people like myself were still using it, it became a big to-do, so they took it into the federal courts. And a judge looked at the material. This is funny. A federal judge has to read the course, and then determines, well, I can't say that this is definitely Jesus, but whoever is the author, which is Jesus, whoever is the author clearly never made it an intention for this to be copyrighted, and threw it out. It's now public domain. So it's really kind of cool, but even on the three-dimensional level, that a judge has to check out the course and then decide that the author, which we can't say for sure is Jesus, because that would be too much, but is Jesus, never asked for it to be copyrighted. So it's almost like Jesus is playing into this, going, I'm gonna explain to you guys one way or the other, this is for everyone. This isn't a book. It isn't a book, it's a teaching, and it isn't a teaching, it's a consciousness. So you can't actually own it, trademark it, register it, etc. All right, and somebody asked the kinds of things we'll be covering. I explained some of that already, but we're going to cover not only the various books, but we're going to tie them together, and we are going to go very deep into a lot of this. I'll read selected parts and so forth, and we'll be able to talk and interact. Even the people online will be able to interact. We're going to talk about the 4 primary obstacles that prevent us from returning to oneness that Jesus addresses in the course. The primary themes, like I said, the Casey material, the psychology, Freud, and all that. We're also going to talk about the 12 primary concepts of A Course in Miracles, which I talk about in my Heart of Course in Miracles. That's what that book's about. There are 12 primary concepts, and those concepts help us get it to a new level, the Course in Miracles, to a new level. If you understand there's 12 concepts, and not just random concepts, they are a progression or digression, and then a progression back, technically. So it all began with the belief that we could separate. And if I were sort of just doing a quick summary, just as an example, how did this happen? We believed we could separate. Then what happened? We judged ourselves for it. Had we not judged ourselves, it would have all reversed. We'd have been done. But we judged ourselves. Oh, that's just terrible. Then what? Well, once you felt like, you judged yourself, you made it real. Once you made it real, you started feeling guilty and afraid. When you became guilty and afraid enough, you said, I've got to have a way to deal with this guilt and fear. Oh, I have an idea. Hey, guys, we're a collective at this point. We're one that's becoming a collective that eventually splits into many. We say to ourselves, hey, I have an idea. Let's create something to blame for it. That was the creation of the ego. Then we could go, that's it. Oh, thank God. Because it's designed to make us outer oriented. Everything that I want in my life to not feel bad is your fault that I feel bad. Or if I want to feel good, oh, you make me feel so good. Everything is stimulant and sedative on the outside. So the ego has to make everything look appetizing to our pain, like it's going to help with our pain, which is the core of all addiction, technically. And so that's the birth of the ego. Then the ego creates a right mind and a wrong mind and a world and all that we talk about. And then the last on the 12 is relationships. Because everything started with splitting our relationship with God, and everything is concluded with our joining relationships with each other. And how's that done? Forgiveness. So it's all explained so nicely. Here's how we got into this. Here's how we can get out of this. By the way, as we get into it, dropping 1 step, 2 step, 3, 4, all the way to 12. At any time in our dropping down, we could have switched over and gone back, which we can do now. For example, if we would have chosen forgiveness instead of judgment, we could have gone back. So the one side, as we descend into this world, is telling us a digression, but technically at any time we could have switched over. But the way it all got designed is, it's kind of funny because the Course explains it. When you thought you could separate, God countered with this. Then the ego countered with that. And then God countered. It's kind of this funny thing that happened. But basically, when you created, as soon as you thought you could separate and create the ego, God's already created the mother to save you. Sent you into your, sent into your mind the Holy Spirit to bring you home. And as soon as you started trying to create this, the Holy Spirit keeps countering. So at the end of the day, you try to create conflict and push away your stuff and blame others, and the Holy Spirit's already countered that with forgiveness. So everything the ego can try to do to keep perpetuating the problem, the Holy Spirit has the solution. And that's love in a nutshell. It's love in all its various forms or manifestations, but it's love. And so there's a way home. It's love. And how is love in this world manifested? Forgiveness. There's a point where we have love and no world anymore, no judgment anymore, then you don't need forgiveness. When you don't need forgiveness, you don't even need miracles, which sounds blasphemous. But it's very clear in the Course. There's a point where miracles are not necessary. Not while you're here, but there's a point where you're one with God. In God, there's no need for a miracle or forgiveness because there's only the bliss, love, joy of God. So we'll go through that. We're also going to obviously talk about things, topics, ego, Holy Spirit, what's right-mindedness, what's forgiveness, what exactly is a holy instant. We'll go through all that and you could say clarify terminology, but it's not like clarifying like a dictionary. We want to understand these things. And it's easiest to understand the Course. And how important is it to understand the Course? It's a course in Christ consciousness. It's designed like a course in psychology. A Course in Miracles really is a course in spiritual psychology. Some of you might go, psychology, oh, that sounds really heavy. And only because of sick minds, making it heavy. Spiritual psychology isn't sick psychology. Right? We are just doing nothing but pathologies and judgments and boxes and so on. It's spiritual psychology. Why is it right to call it spiritual? Because it's from God. Why is it right to call it psychology, spiritual psychology? Because it is about you changing your consciousness, your mind. Psychology technically would be about healing the psyche, understanding and healing and studying the psyche. So it really is spiritual psychology. I want to understand my mind, my consciousness. Another thing that's important to remember, there are terms in the Course that are questionable or challenging, like using the masculine pronoun for God. There's only one instance, which I don't think any Course student even knows. There's only one instance where it used she, almost by accident, and that's, I won't even tell you where that is. It's kind of stashed in there, but it doesn't mean it's supposed to be he. Jesus was using, remember, this is important, when a spiritual presence comes through a person, it comes through their filters. So, although there's intention from the Spirit that's coming through, it still is coming through filters. So, if Jesus gave me A Course in Miracles, the book would be filled with all kinds of analogies, because that's me. Through Helen, it went into Shakespearean pentameter because she was a Shakespearean fan. It's not like Jesus said, the only way you can learn anything is Shakespearean. It's what she loved. So Spirit will honor you and come through your style. So you might be writing Zen in the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Remember, some of you know that old book. Because that's your theme, your thing, your interest. So is the he, because that's the vernacular, the style, the verbiage of her? Yes, greatly so. But really, it would have been easier to refer to the Holy Spirit as she. You know, so if I were republishing the course, I would change it to she, but not because I'm fighting for something. It's because it's actually historically more accurate. Only because it's historically more accurate. The church often speaks of the Holy Spirit as a he. There's all kinds of reasons that makes no sense, but that's what they did. And so he goes with that. Now, did Jesus also do that? To push buttons? You know, some people theorize possibly. This will get him working on some stuff. You know, using all kinds of he energy in there. That's possible, or whatever. You know, whatever perspective you want to take on this. There's the he. But there's also the psychology some people would have a struggle with. But there's bits of terminology that can be challenging. So when it's talking about you and it says, I want you to do this prayer. Father, male, I am your son. Well, what if I'm like a 12-year-old girl? That's not making any sense to me. So right away, I'm trying to do a prayer, but it's, Father, I am your son. Please shine your light upon me and help me to come home to the place your son deserves to be, or whatever. It just sounds strange. When I do that, when I read prayers, even when they do sacred readings here, if they're quoting from the Course, I told them originally, please try to remember, change it to, I am your child. I'm not trying to fight what the Course said to say, because they're the same thing. That's what it's about, is the intention, consciousness. But why does it say, I'm your son? Why? Son. What about women? Well, this is where it gets tricky. Technically, and why is it saying singular? You know, we're the children. It doesn't typically say children in the Course. Why not say children instead of, we are your son? That makes no sense. Because it's trying actually to help you own that just like Jesus said, I am the Son of God, it wants you to say it too. It wants you to be inclusive into the Holy Son of God. Okay, what about the Holy Daughter? Now there's two. You just made it into two. A son and a daughter. You see what I'm doing there? Now you're making duality. Well, but the women have to, this isn't about women. This isn't about females. This isn't about girls. This is, well, why male? I'm agreeing with you. If it comes through me, it's going to say the child of God. But what about the children? Why does it say singular child? Because you and I are one. It actually has a reason for that. And another play on words, I would have put, sometimes when it says, I'm your son, I would have spelled it S-U-N. Because it's actually also trying to make you and I understand that we are the light in our solar system. We are the sun in the world, the universe. And just spelling it different would have kind of eased that for some people. All right. This is a quote I'm going to share from Sogyal Rinpoche, a Tibetan Buddhist. And I think it's fantastic in case you want to know a little bit about, let's take another perspective of what is the ego. And here you go. Frantically and in real dread, we cast around and improvise another identity, a false identity. One we clutch unto with all the desperation of someone following into a continuous abyss. This false and ignorantly assumed identity is your ego. Ego is then defined as incessant movements of grasping at delusory notion of I, like a false notion of who I am, or mine, a self, and other, and all the concepts, ideas, desires, and activities that'll sustain that false construction. See, so we're afraid, he's saying, we're afraid, and in that falling, we start fabricating because we're desperate and falling, we're afraid, a false identity. Then we start doing all these activities, My ideas, my desires, my reactions, my experiences are all related to that false identity. Like it's like falling and then going, I'm going to land. Who's going to land? The one that's falling. You start, everything that's going to be happening around you is all related to that false I. So long as we haven't unmasked the ego, it continues to hoodwink us. Ego and its grasping are at the root of all suffering. And even if we were to see through the ego's lies, we're just too scared to abandon it. For without any true knowledge of the nature of your mind or true identity, we simply have no other alternative. It's really brilliant. Good description. First and foremost, that this is fear-based. And then a false self, and the Course totally agrees, then everything you do with your life now is about sustaining that false identity. Because, well, at least it's familiar. So Jesus is going to say, oh, is it? Okay. So you cling to your ego because it's familiar. Okay, fair enough. This is the logical progression. He's going to say, okay, so you do accept that. Yeah, I do. I accept it. At least it's familiar. This is the me that I know myself to be. Okay. Are you happy? Well, as happy I can be, given my situation. Are you ever feeling pain? Yes. Do you like the pain? Well, of course not. Would you like to be in less pain? Well, anybody would. Okay, well, fine. As long as it's not too scary, right, to come out of pain, right. So I wonder if you'd be considering this. Would you consider doing this if it meant, well, yeah, I might. See, if he tells you how to just get there, it's too much. So he's got to say, well, and in a Course he says, you think the Course is telling you how to become enlightened. He says, you would run from the material if it told you how to get enlightened. So what we have to do is help you realize how painful it is to be unenlightened. Right? So this teaching technique, he says, I'm using, is to help you understand how miserable you are, which is like, wait a minute. What happened to some of these channels that it's all about positivity and only affirm the good and forget the bad? And Jesus is like, I'm Christ, they're not, so listen to me. I need you. And why would Jesus want to go on something negative? Because he's saying, you won't let go of that. I can sparkle and, look at the wow, look at this pizzazz over here, this sparkle glittery gold that I'm going to give you. What good is that if you're still thinking where you're at is safer? Right? The person who sees that where they're at is unsafe. It's a ledge, it's giving. The roots are pulling out. You're about to fall. And a chopper comes down. There's a guy on the ladder. Jump. It's not easy. Do you understand? Some people's bodies cannot let go of the roots that they're holding. And they'll hold them all the way to the bottom of the cliff till their death. Right? Why? Fear. And that sounds very visceral because it is. But he's saying in your psychology, it is visceral. You don't realize how much you're clinging to being in this world. Look at people that are dying. The pain we feel when we're dying is often more in here, not letting go of the body. If you breathe and drop into it, it starts fading into something that's quite blissful, right? Higher dimensionality. The clinging to the body, I'm not making the person wrong for that. The clinging to the body, just like the person who's clinging to the roots of the root they're trying to pull out on an infected tooth, it's for your greater good. But the root is partly responding to your mind that's afraid to let go of something. In the Course, he uses things like a child will cry when you take a knife away from them. It's not good for them, but it still cries when you try to take it away. So he uses analogies like that, saying, if I just try to peel something out of your hands, it's too scary for you. But I do want to educate you and let you know the choices you're making are hurting you. I'm not going to obsess on that and overly guilt you, of course, on that, but I would like you to come to understand The life that my ego is drawing me to, the world my ego has created, is not one of peace. And he uses logical progression to get you to understand that. You might think it's great, but really? And he'll walk you through some exercises and you'll go, wow, this really isn't my home. Once you are willing to let go of their claws on this world a bit, he can say, let go and jump. There's something amazing over here. Your life, your survival, better prosperity, or whatever. But, having to work through fear-based minds, obviously not the easiest thing. You may not realize that the Course is telling you that life on earth is a dark night of the soul. I thought the dark night was like something every so many years. Yeah, that's true. But in the big picture, earth is a dark night of the soul. It is. What's the dark night of the soul about? A death of an old self? Exactly. You literally do it. You die here and come back. What's the dark night of the soul about? Lessons, that's what this is about. Healing, that's what this is about. Having to look at your stuff, that's what this is about. Dark night of the soul, this planet. It doesn't mean I'm saying it stays horrible, but there are two ways of being on earth. One of them is living in the nightmare created by our ego, and one of them is about having a happy dream. You have to be awake on earth before you go home. You don't say, terrible, terrible life, but I can't wait because when I die, I get to go home. That doesn't work. You just get sent back. That is a cycle. You're just looping around. And the ego doesn't want you to know that. Because you might say, this is getting old. If the average person that wants to wake up is told, how many lifetimes do you think you've had? Oh, I don't know, 4 or 5 for sure. If you were told, what if it's in the hundreds? And you still don't got it. You just still don't get it. Do you want to do hundreds more? I wouldn't say, oh, yes. Can I come back next time and struggle with this and forget all of the purpose to it? That doesn't make any sense at all. So no, I would be like, no. How do I shorten the time? And that's, if you think you're comfortable, you're not going to want to give in so much. We have to come to understand, it's called humility. Of myself, I am nothing. If Jesus can say that, I have to learn to say that. But he's really an amazing being. He's saying, of the limited human self, I'm nothing. But in God, I'm all things. I'm everything. So again, teaching us a different option. But life on earth is like a dark night of the soul. And the point of the dark night of the soul is the light at the end of the tunnel. So there's 2 ways of living on earth. One of them is the dark night, which is the nightmare. The light at the end of the tunnel, in using the bigger picture of life, the purpose of earth, is reaching the light at the end of the tunnel. Not the light at the end of the tunnel when you die, that white tunnel they see. It's light at the end of the tunnel, meaning I'm now on earth, but I get it. And the Course is, word by word, teaching you, actually reprogramming you, not just teaching you intellectually. It's reprogramming you to become a person who is awake even in this dream. It's called lucid dreaming. To teach you to wake up while on earth. Then life on earth shifts from the nightmare. It is a nightmare even if you think life is going decently and you're kind of just numbing yourself with drugs or alcohol or whatever. You go, I'm doing just great. It's still a nightmare. It's only the happy dream when it's filled with a sense of love and forgiveness, compassion, joy, peace. There's a feeling of harmony. So that's where we're all going. First, there's the nightmare. Second, I'm waking up in the dream. It's called right-mindedness in the Course. Wrong-mindedness. Wrong is a word that, again, some people get hooked on. Wrong-mindedness, right-mindedness, and then one-mindedness of God. That's the progression that we're going. It does use wrong-mindedness, and some people go, God, you shouldn't judge, and wrong is a bad word. No, he's using it for a reason. He's saying wrong as in you are incorrect. Wrong means incorrect. Well, what do you mean I'm incorrect? You think you're separate from God, and you're not. How much further into incorrect can you go? That's as incorrect as it gets. All right? Let's see. Also, I've already said this, but I do want you to know that you don't have to interact. But it's mentioned here in the note. Yes, you can. This is going to be done in a program that you can push a button on your computer and say, you know, I want to ask a question. You can send them in ahead of time, anonymously, if you want. It's totally fine. I'm fine and encouraging you guys that are in the course to participate. Ask questions, get feedback. Because I would love to know that at the end of the course, you had a question on your mind that you've never been able to ask. You asked it, now you understand it. It could be what is the ego, for example. You know, a lot of people get tripped up on that. So, all right, last one or two. I do have to say, you know, though, buckle up. You know, I do want to say that. I don't want to intimidate beginners because they don't need to. It's great. I mean, if this was my first time looking at the course, this is exactly what I would have wanted. For it to be true, clear, accurate. I mean, I would have loved this sort of thing, you know. And the course is one of those, one of those materials that every time you read it, you go, wow, how did I miss that before? But this is kind of interesting because I have more than one copy of A Course in Miracles. I have one from these days and one from this year and a gift somebody get, you know. And so I get a new one and I'll read it again. You know, I'll go through it again for a whole year and read the whole course again. But this is interesting because this last month, I had to read the whole thing again in 1 month for this course because I wanted to make notes of which parts we're going to cover. So I had 2 versions of it laid side by side and had to read both, right? Check out both to see which pieces we're going to go into. But this one read years from this one separately. When I go through and look at what I've already highlighted, I highlighted sometimes word for word the same things on any given page. I would say to you, probably 80% is the same. Not to take away from my comment that you learn new things each time. It's that those were the things that were resonant with me. And so almost like scary, perfect. Even when I wrote notes to the side margin, where I made a note like to say that this chapter, this paragraph is about the ego and its various facets. This other book, years before, the ego and its various facets. I mean, it's kind of funny and cool, you know. And still other pieces, and I'll go, wow, how did I miss that one back when I read it here? You know, so there still is some of that, but very, very deep stuff. But buckle up because it's not just how fast, not I don't mean speed, but I mean in terms of boom, like we're going to go into this so powerfully. But at the same time, how can we do this course like this and not be doing something? I couldn't teach a course and tell you it's going to be doing something if it's not. My conscience wouldn't do things like that. It just doesn't work that way. You know, I just couldn't. So something's there. Something's going to be happening. I know for me, I go through the course, and sometimes I think, well, this year, yeah, maybe this year I'll take a break from it. You know, I just never do. I just end up doing it again, and not like an addiction. It's like a commitment to my shifting in consciousness. The Course is not an interesting book. It's not, oh, this is an interesting read. You know, it's not like that at all. It is a course in consciousness, spiritual psychology, Christ consciousness, and in shifting our minds into becoming miracle machines. You know, I would say sometimes I think as a teacher, you know, sometimes it kind of irks me that you know, it's kind of a bummer that we have to charge for courses. You know, if I was a millionaire, I would still do the course and just not charge for it. I'm not wronging charging. Don't get me wrong there. I'm just saying, because I know there's a lot of people that would like to do courses like this and can't afford. They can't afford. So I know that I often, and I will do it this time too, pay for a scholarship so somebody else can get in. If any of you watching can afford, and you're getting in the course, can afford somebody else to get in, please, feel free to buy a scholarship and we'll extend it to somebody. But it's just the three-dimensional stuff that we have to deal with, in doing this, doing these kinds of things, these courses, and paying staff and, and all that, making a living for that matter. The last thing I'm going to share off the questions that were asked. This one's kind of about forgiveness. Now, the way I'm going to word the answer to this is as follows. Okay, so on one level, people think, well, I'm having some issues with people in my life. That's kind of a normal way to think of it if you're messed up. Because you see people with your eyes, you're confirmed they're there, then you can see and hear their behavior. Clearly, you have evidence that it's them. Of course, the yogis are telling you never believe your senses. So one group of people are going to say, my problems are with these other people outside. Then there's another group that's sort of saying, but wait, what if the people in our lives are just tests? Which they are. So it's not just they're the problem. What if they're tests? Now check this out. What if they're tests? That's kind of cool. So you're a test to see if I can really own love or forgiveness, patience, compassion. Very cool. That's a higher way to think, right? Okay, now check this out though. The Course takes you into, you still think though, that the people that are outside is the problem. Then you think higher, which is good. They're actually not just the problem. They're tests to help me heal things, which is true. That's great. But the Course is going to go, so true is this. Can you go one step higher? Which is that the people that are doing this are already predetermined by you to be doing what they're doing. So they're not just tests. They're already you and what you believe about yourself. So when someone pushes your buttons and you can't take it, you actually already decided you can't take it, and now you just are playing it out like a play, an author of a play, screenwriter, and so on, and you're just watching what already happened inside. That's the kind of thing you get from the Course. Not just going deeper into their lessons, which is a great place to be, but can we go even further to say, even when I fall in love with you, it's reflecting me believing that falling in love is what I'm going to do. What's happening on the outside, for good or ill, what's happening on the outside was already, that's why sometimes Jesus sounds fatalistic. There was a point where he says, in the diary notes, not in the Course, where he's talking to Helen and she says, well, but I could have done this and I could have, I should have been whatever. And the way he blurts it out is, well, it wouldn't have mattered what you decided to do because it was going to happen anyway. And, I've talked to other teachers of the Course that's slipped in there and it's like, wait, what? That's not in the Course, but you slipped it in there. So don't be running away and, explain this. What do you mean? It would have happened anyway. That sounds like predetermination. And teachers, the few that even caught that, where do they go with that? They can't figure out exactly what it means. But this helps you understand that what you're seeing is already what you determined to be the answer of whatever it is. I went to get off the stage and I tripped. I already decided that that's what I'm going to do. But where's free will? Well, free will would come from, now that I see this is happening, I'm going to change it. But that it's happening, I already decided that. So the tests aren't just cool, the tests are created by me. One level, there are no tests. The next level, there's tests. The next level is, whoa! I actually already, this is showing me already how I graded myself. Do you see the difference? It's not just saying I created the tests. It's literally showing me how I already decided I would do with such a test. When somebody rips you off, which doesn't feel very good, you already predetermined in your heart and soul, I'm undeserving. And they're playing it out. What we think is, they're playing it out, I should forgive them. But wait, you don't just forgive them. Go one step in further and you go, wait, wow, on what planet was I thinking that I wasn't more worthy? To look at ourselves and say, people doing things to us reflects our beliefs about ourselves. Now, you won't even hear me saying that all the time because it's so intimidating to people. Some people can get very defensive about, don't you tell me that my, was decision and my belief system, that was somebody else. And, that's the nightmare. Because in nightmares, lots of victims, in case you haven't noticed. Nightmares have lots of victim characters in it. And those are the people living the one level, victims. Notice I did 3 levels there. So the next level would be starting to recognize the deeper meaning to things, and that's showing that I'm starting to wake up. So that's where, when you say to yourself, for example, a positive note, oh, Michael said this one thing tonight, and it really opened my mind, really blew my mind. You have to understand, and you already decided that you were ready. I'm the manifestation of your decision that you're ready. So you can compliment any teacher, and they could righteously say, thank you, that's very nice, because you're also me. Showing me, Michael, how are you feeling about yourself today? I feel really good. As what, as a teacher. Wow, look, people are complimenting the talk you did. See, you're confirming what I believe of myself as a teacher. And same thing, the other way around. I said these amazing, this teacher, I have to go listen to this teacher because he makes me aware and well, that's how you think. Technically, that's still victim thinking, even though it's a nice victim. But you're still thinking you're the recipient. You start to go, but wait. Everything he said was what I already decided in my soul. Because the outside is nothing but the staged version of your inside. That's not always easy to digest. I know this to be true, and I'll still trip every day around this stuff because you're on this planet. So it's not easy to go, oh, a red light, okay. On some level within my soul, I predetermined the light was going to be red. It becomes impractical. Oh, green light on some level, and people are, wait, I'm having an insight. Maybe that's what they're doing in the roundabouts in Sedona, having insights of predetermination. So think about that. That, wow, and I know it's not easy, especially the painful ones. They're not easy because, wow, these people are doing this and treating me a certain way, but wait, they're also reflecting to me something. And it's not just a lesson, that's the second level of understanding. What if they're reflecting what I've already determined about myself? My value, whether it's winning the lottery or whatever else it might be. Because I could say, on some level, I feel like I deserve and win the lottery. It doesn't make me better than anyone else, but on some level, those tumblers fell into place. Click, pop the lock, lottery, winning lottery ticket. Great. But then there's another side of me, the ego. You're not worthy. Then you have new family members showing up you never heard of that want a loan and a gift, and there goes all your money. And was that my unworthiness? Now, that could also come from my belief in generosity. I'm saying if, though, I had low self-worth, I could very much lose that gift. Okay? So recognize all the different levels that we can go into. Tonight I'm sharing about how this works instead of just telling you about what we'll study, rather, how it all works. So I hope that's kind of come together. And we're going to finish in just a couple minutes, but a couple questions from folks first. Yes?
I just wanted to, I don't know how you feel about this, but when I first started taking Course in Miracles, something that helped me tremendously was also using the glossary as a reference, because a lot of the words that are used in the Course, the definitions are not the same as in Wikipedia or
Right.
the dictionaries.
Right.
Like forgiveness and stuff that I've always had a problem with.
Right.
The glossary for A Course in Miracles is entirely different, and it's a big,
Right.
big help.
So she's describing the value of some resources that are like dictionaries of terminology in the Course or glossaries of terminology in the related to the Course. So you can't you can do anything you want, but it's easier if you ask the Course what it means by Holy Spirit than looking in the dictionary. You're going to be better off asking the Course, what do you mean by miracle, than looking it up in the dictionary. Because the dictionary is going to talk about some supernatural power intervening into a natural course of events. That's a dictionary description of a miracle. But the Course is going to say it's when a person has decided to see something differently. A resentment turned into a forgiveness, for example. That's its description. It's a much more psychological process than an external, phenomenon of some kind. Yes.
I was just going to say, on that third level, what came to my mind was that it's a confirmation, which you used that word. Jesus is, to me, is indicating it's a confirmation that you have set a specific sort of unfoldment for yourself, and when you get to that place, it's the confirmation that yes, this is what you determined. And the crux of that then is, how much longer do you want to play this game,
Right.
and not be cognizant of the fact that you reside within the mind of God, you're a co-creator with God, and be about your business.
Right. Right. So she's commenting on that third level I was describing, where we're seeing externally, and the Course is very brilliant about that, but also very straight about it. That what you're seeing on the outside is, you could say, predetermined by what though? By karma, by fate. That's what most people put on predetermination. It's like a negative, like a karma, a fate by the gods of Olympus. Even in Greek mythology, they're called fates. These beings, these spirit beings, are called fates that bring certain things upon you. And I think that's brilliant, the terminology, use the words fate, and then it has its meaning. But the fates of life, is it predetermined? The gods of Olympus? Is it God? Is it the Holy Spirit? Is it karma? What is causing? But instead, the Course is trying to tell us it's determined by what you believe about yourself. The more I believe that I am as God created me, the more I'm going to see the effects of that. The more I believe I am separate, the more I'm going to feel guilty and ashamed, and I'm going to see the manifestations of that. So you could say that even bad karma, well, what's the point of bad karma? If it is what it is. Karma that comes from something I've not done, that I either didn't do right or did and it was poorly done, hurtful. So that bad karma is coming back to me. Okay, fair enough. But what I'm describing is my belief about myself. How does that overlap? Because if I believe I'm guilty, then the bad karma resonates with me and it comes. When I start to forgive myself, that actually starts erasing even bad karma. Because I don't identify with it. There's no resonance. Well, wait a minute, the ego will say, this is yours. It has your name on it. I can access the Akashic records. The ego's allowed to do that. It can search your Akashic records and find some bizarre loophole from lifetime, 800 lifetimes ago, that was 50,000 years ago, and find some moment where you were naughty and say, so therefore, all these things have to get paid up. That's the rule in the universe. Everything has to be met, every penny paid. That's the rule of the duality universe. And when you're able to say, yeah, it's a funny thing though. I'm transparent now. So even if you sling the mud called bad karma, it doesn't stick to anything. So the ego will have the right to sling it. You get to choose to not receive it. It just through you. If you are identifying, this is metaphor only, if I'm identifying with myself as a dense, guilty being who's done bad, and oh my God, now I feel bad about that, I'm already densifying. The density of our body, the density meaning the beliefs, not just the actual vibration, the density, how much I'm stuck in this body, how every little thing, ouch, bothers me. It's all such sensitivity because I think I'm so much a body, I can't take anything. You know, I'm just so reactive to everything, emotionally as well as physically. Remember what I said, body, I'm talking about your humanness, not just the dense little tissue here. So when I identify with myself as a separated person, start to feel guilty, I start to become very sensitive, physically, emotionally, reactive. Karma's obviously coming at me. It's an example of saying I'm so immature that when the wind blows outside, I'm going to get under my sheets and just not be able to sleep because they sound like howling ghouls. Well, wake up, man. You're a spiritual adult now. That's the analogy. I'm a spiritual adult now. That's the, it's the wind. I understand how when I was a child, I thought as a child, I understand how that might have sounded creepy at one time, but it is actually just the wind. Now I'm going to go to sleep using that sound almost like it's a nice toning, droning out in the, out there and just lulling me into sleep. I changed my perception of it. So healing, miracles actually induce healing. Healing induces miracles. It's a beautiful process. And as I'm healing my beliefs about being a limited being, I stop identifying with being a limited being. When I stop identifying with being limited, I become what seems like more transparent. And stuff just, as they say, water off a duck's back, but it's like mud right through. It just doesn't stick. There's no thing in me that it's going to stick to. In my own personal day-to-day life, stuff can still happen, but I'm pretty quick to just readjust it. And that's what we have to do. If you find yourself getting hit by the mud of life, and it does stick, and it does hurt when it hits, and it has muddied you, that's okay. Forgiveness is this is the purpose of forgiveness, is to wash clean. If you were already clear, transparent, pure spirit, you wouldn't need a miracle because it would just go right through you and you wouldn't even think of anything to heal. So forgiveness is valuable while we still think we're bodies, humans, and still think that there's something to forgive in ourselves or others. Yes?
Being still kind of cultivating my new career life and things, I know that my time is limited. So as a pupil for the year, what should I kind of expect of myself in giving to myself and being a student in the program?
It's kind of interesting because, and I do this sometimes, my mind is thinking really, wow, spiritual. So she says, what if time's limited? My mind's like, you mean on the earth plane and within the dimensionalities? I mean, my mind immediately was going there, and she's like, no, I mean hours in the day. Oh, that. Sorry, but my mind immediately was somewhere else. Like, wow. So, and it's a great question. You can devote any amount of time. You can first of all, if you get into the program and join us in the program, and if you do, you get the download of my course, the 12 Steps, the Heart of A Course in Miracles, if you sign up. But and also, if you pay for the course, it's only like $100 or something per month. So less than 25 a week, but which is pretty standard for like a group a class. But if you pay for it in advance, you get like 10-20% off or something like that. So that's cool too. But time-wise, you just devote as much as you want or can. You can watch it and only watch the Sunday presentation and let it be. Every day I'm going to I have to record 365 workbook lessons, and I'll be doing one every day. So I'll be reading that. You can Google it, what the lesson is today. You can also just open your book and look at the lesson of today. I'll probably be adding a little bit of feedback or commentary, but I'm going to also do the course. So you can also click on it, phone, and, have me reading the course lesson for the day. But that's part of my commitment. I'm going to do the 365 lessons, and then every Wednesday night we're going to be reading some excerpts from the course, but discussing their depth and their connection to other things. And then I'll interject some of the deeper things that were meant, because some things are there that you don't know what was really being shared underneath all of that when it was being described. And I love that stuff. I love knowing that when Jesus was describing such and such, and you're reading the course, you just read it and go, wow, that's amazing. But sometimes there were multiple levels of meaning that he was getting across. For example, one simple thing. The whole time you're reading A Course in Miracles, and he's talking about you healing issues with others, which is all valid for us collectively. Most people don't realize the book was also given to Helen so she could heal her relationship with her friends, particularly Bill, her co-editor. So when you're actually reading the course, sometimes the words were you and your brother. That's the words that came through. You and your brother need to work on this. He was actually telling her, you and Bill, and she had to erase the words and change it to others. So the course is specific to Helen and Bill, but also to all of us. But you could also then apply it to anybody in your life. Any person. You could use it as a crash course, all at the same time. You can do all of these at the same time. But you can use it as a crash course with that pain in the butt person in your life and go, you know what? By the time this course is done, and it will get you to do it, I insist on having a revelation. I'm going to start with this course about me and life, me and others, me and a sibling, me and a partner, me and an ex. You can even make a little card of the people that annoy you and use it as your bookmark. Because what you're really going to be saying is, by the end of the course, I am determined to see this differently. I'm starting the course with these names. When I end it, I'm supposed to be seeing God. You mean these people, if I were a fundamentalist, these people on my list are going to hell, and I will get to fly off into, the end of A Course in Miracles, into the new vision and revelations from God. No, it's saying that's why it's spiritual psychology. You're going to see God. Great. And those people will be gone, right? No, you're actually going to end up seeing God in them. I don't want to do that. I don't even want to. It's not even sounding appealing to me. Like, not really? That's not even of interest. I want to ascend, and I want to know that they're going to hell for being mean to me. So I probably shouldn't even tell you this part, because if you're thinking like that, this will be a turnoff. Oh no, this isn't the course for me. You'll become a fundamental Christian then, because then you'll just think you're going somewhere and everybody else is going to hell. Okay? So something along those lines anyway. But just the commitment. It's so many layers, so many levels. I just think it's all so brilliant. Just beautiful. Yes?
So is there structure to the course? Will we have assignments so that we'll know where we're supposed to be? Like read this, do this?
Yeah. We're going to, partly you folks are going to be asked to watch for things that really turn you on and further read that, as well as things that are confusing. So we're going to ask folks, it's not mandatory to interact, but I'm going to ask you folks. So let's pause on that. I would like you guys this week, take this piece and go into that. Now I could tell you about this and that, but I'd like your minds to start working it. Because believe it or not, while you're working the problem, you're actually changing. That's another one of the trippy things in the course. While you're working it, you're not just getting insights and ahas and epiphanies. While you're working it, things are activating. Spiritual neurons, so to speak, are getting activated. You're becoming a different person. That doesn't mean I'm going to just dump it all on you to have to do, but a balance somewhat of that. So there'll be assignments, but it's not stringent. It's not overwhelming. And back to the question, how much time is required? As little or as much as you want to give. There'll be a workbook lesson every day. You can have me read it to you, or you can read it yourself. Once a week, we're going to do assignments, but I'm going to read excerpts and explain some things, ask you to think some things over. We'll be doing at least a half of a chapter per week, because there's over 30 chapters and 50-something weeks. So it'll be, roughly half a chapter per week. But there's also other things we're going to be going into. So it'll be, in a sense, almost a chapter per week, because there's other pieces we're interjecting, some of the other extra material from Jesus. Okay? But yes, but you can put an hour or two to watch it. And if you miss it, if you miss Wednesday night, it's online for you to go watch it the next day or the next week for that matter. Not to worry. You can start the course, anytime. You can do it any day, and you can still catch up and watch it on your own. So there's no heaviness to that. A few hands were still up. Yes.
Is this the only Wednesday we can come here live and see you? Or will we be able to come here every Wednesday and see you, or just once a month, or have you even decided that yet? I see the smile on your face, but...
Yes, the in-person here at Unity of Sedona, theoretically, it's the first Wednesday of every month we will be in the room, not just online. All Wednesdays, it's online no matter what. Even if you're wanting to attend here and you miss the class, you can still watch it online from home, or watch it the next day or whenever. But we're committed to, right now, one Wednesday, first Wednesday of every month, we'll be in the room. Okay? And yes.
What materials do we need to have?
Just, I would bring if you have a copy of the course, great. And pencil. It's online, but what you'll need, but your writing materials is all. Whatever feels right for you. Highlighter, because you might want to highlight some points and make notes to in the margins and so on for yourself. Because if I were you, I might browse back at some of what we covered this week and look at some of my notes and then write some of my own notes, which is again relating to how much do we dedicate. One way to make this simple for yourselves is like my Course in Miracles is on my nightstand. And before I'm going to go to bed, I'm reading it. So I would dedicate morning and maybe bedtime, that gives you some time, to this course that we're going to do. Just take your Course in Miracles with you in your car. Because for me, if I'm waiting for somebody at a store, or if I'm early for an appointment and I have to wait, I'm just going to go into it. And when I have other books, that's what I do then. But doing this course, that's what I would do. So that you're having extra time to do it, and it's not something you put off and miss doing or forget to do. Okay? And who else had their hand up? Yes?
When you said this is for Helen to heal her issues with Bill, I heard it put him in his issues.
Issues.
Issues. You said
Her issues and putting herself in his shoes, yeah.
That's how the course works for me.
Yep.
Is it just expands every time.
Very good.
It is you.
Yes. I've already said there's so many layers to the course, and you can't avoid that Helen was working on her issues while she's writing the course. And it would filter in there. There's no doubt about it. Even when it's talking when it's Easter time during her channelings. Well, that's in the course. And he'll start just shifting and talking about lilies. But when he's talking about lilies and the symbolism, he'd say, offer lilies instead of crucifixions. But he was telling her about her own conflicts in her own relationships. Come on, offer lilies instead of crucifixions. And it's almost like, okay, he's just being kind of cosmic and metaphysical symbolism, crucifixion. No, he's saying every time someone's annoying you, you're technically trying to crucify them. Because, in other words, you're trying to see them as bad, and bad people get crucified. Because that's what criminals used to get executed. So when you're saying somebody's a jerk, it's a crucifying statement. Now, I'm not saying you have to be all obsessed on your wording and your thoughts, and oh my God, I shouldn't think a naughty thought. Go ahead and think it. The Course is telling you, you're not going to get this down perfectly. You have to take the only doorway into the perfection. And it's not human perfectionism. It's, I'm just not doing it. And I need to forgive myself. It's so funny. I mean, it's just so brilliant. Read, study, practice, and try this and do this better and more patience. And you still don't get the Course. You're still trying to behave better. You're still not going to get it. Do you understand that even if you completely dedicate to the Course and you only read the Course, you don't watch TV, you only read the Course. You read the Course while you're having your, grape nut cereal, and all these course, you're still going to mess up. And if you mess up only once, let's say you dedicate for A Course in Miracles for a year and you are somehow doing everything perfectly, which you will not. But let's say you did. And only one time you mess up. The laws of the universe in the dualistic universe is the wages of sin is death. All you need to do is screw up once and you're still karmically tied to this place. God, now I got to do it again next year and try not to make that mistake. You're going to make another one. The way to do it is, instead of being all obsessed and perfectionist oriented, trying to get it where you just get all and even erase that one last thing, which is, wow, good dedication. But if you could choose between that person who will still condemn themselves for missing one thing in an entire year, you could choose between that and the person who messes up 100 times and yet forgives themselves. That's the one you got to be. Strangely enough. It sounds so counterintuitive, but it's not. That's the point. The Course sounds like it's telling you how to be. Instead, it's actually telling you how you will be if you practice more forgiveness. Okay, it's telling me here, and I can't do this and I shouldn't do that. I mean, Jesus is talking to Helen, and he's talking quite specifically about people she doesn't like. She would be like, now Jesus, this person is a jerk. She'd be annoyed. The famous story I've quoted before is she hated, constantly her husband. And then there was also the neighbor upstairs. I just know that they're purposefully putting on high heels just so they can walk real loud across the floor to annoy me. She actually thought that. And one time she's like, about her husband, can you believe him? I know he's leaving a sock on the floor just because he knows it gets to me. All these annoying behaviors of hers, which she and her friends later on, endearingly called this the battle between heaven and Helen. Because she was so constantly fighting even all this goodness. But I have to tell you, never did Jesus once say, you blew it, bad girl. It would be like, and how's that feeling? You're not happy? Would you like to be happy? There's times when he was clearer, firmer, never in a judgmental way. But there's times when he was clearer with her about something, where he was just making a point. Well, how would you be feeling today? How do you expect to be feeling after yesterday going off on so-and-so? He would call her on, you were quite angry. There's a point where he almost, I'm just paraphrasing, but as he's talking to her and she's scribing things, he starts purposefully messing with her and saying things that are going to confuse her. And she's like, trying to write this, and it's like, sure, but she's kind of trying to just keep up, and he's saying these things and she's trying to keep up, and she goes, just wait a minute. What are you talking about? Well, I'm saying such and such. Well, why didn't you say that? I did. No, you said it in a more complicated way. I'm almost having an aneurysm, she said to him. And he said, yeah, but it got your attention, didn't it? So he was purposefully wording something in a way that was sort of catching her, and her obsessive mind wouldn't let it go. So she's trying to continue writing, but she's back at that other piece. She's like, fine, wait a minute. And she's got to take it all back. What is that? And the end of it was, but it got your attention. He goes, well, you could have just said that. He goes, I tried. And you're not listening. For example, I said this. You want to look at what you wrote? It was not at all what he had told her. I said this and you wrote this. You know, she would accidentally insert different words than the ones, you know, he was telling her, which we're going to discuss some of the oddities of the editing and the words. She wouldn't allow the words like the Holy Spirit in the first chapters. She kept short-circuiting and blocking it. And that's why it's still not in there. They went back and repaired some things in the course. She did, and Jesus, with Jesus' guidance. But some things didn't get repaired. Repaired meaning she wouldn't use the words because she was so scared of this. So she's writing like a good scribe, but she would not be able to hear the words Holy Spirit. So she would hear He. Or she would call it the voice. Okay? The voice. So there's interesting things about that. And you say, well, that might only be relevant to her. No, we all have our short circuits. We all have our blocks and our filters, and that's okay. So then why should I even do the course if it's really just about forgiving myself? Because the course is actually going to process you through the forgiveness. It's not going to just tell you about it. It's going to actually walk you through the process. If that makes sense, because that's sort of hard for some people to even understand. Okay? I appreciate everybody's time and commitment to this. I really encourage you, sign up if you can. Join us if you can. We're going to have likely between 50 and 100 people in the course. But a lot of minds changing. And people will sign up, you know, sometimes during the course. But it's ideal if you can sign up ahead of time. You know, like I said, it's fairly simple. You know, $100 and something per month. But boy, a year that you will never be the same.
I'm so
Okay.
excited you're doing this.
You're so excited.
I really am.
Right on.
I'm so excited. You talk about this all the time. And after reading your book, The Heart of A Course in Miracles, it made it so much easier to understand. But this, and I'm
Yep.
just talking out of turn, I don't care. But I really don't, because The Course in Miracles has changed my life.
Yeah.
Completely changed my life.
It's A Course in Miracles is a course in changing consciousness. It really is. There's other phrases we could use, you know, interchangeably, but it is absolutely a course in changing consciousness. So our lives will not be the same. I've done the course how many times? And it's still, it's going to be, I know, transformational. And I believe that it's part of this divine plan. I do believe we're all participating in something that is about shifting consciousness. So those of us who are getting into this course, I'm really totally convinced we're doing something very significant. It's not like we're just kind of hanging out. You know, let's play bingo or whatever. This is real stuff. You know, so it's very beautiful, and I appreciate everybody's commitment. Even the folks that can't, for any reason, you know, commit to it. The heart, even the desire to want to, on some level, they're there anyway, getting it with us. So it'll be fine. You know, if you can't, fret not. You know, it'll maybe happen, manifest that you'll take it another time, but at least your heart's in the right place, and I think that still speaks something. You know. But thank you guys for your time, and join us. Like I said, if you can get more information online. You can ask my team or email us if you need to ask more questions. But it's going to be fantastic, and I appreciate that so many of you are already feeling the vibe. All right, peace be with all of you. God bless, and thanks for joining us. Bye bye.